In this video, we are going to talk about some very simple concepts related to manageability of your applications. So, the very first thing to understand is this concept of Spring Actuators. Spring defines a bunch of actuators that provide you information about your application as it is running, and they are very useful once you have your application in production. So, let us look at these things. So, very first thing we need to do is add actuators into the POM, and to do that we just go to pom.xml and we can add here a starter. There is a starter defined for actuators which is called Spring boot starter actuator. Yeah, that's the one. So, we define this, and now let us just refresh our pom.xml, because sometimes I have seen there is an issue with IntelliJ and the new dependencies are not being used. So, we just go to Maven and just say reload project. Once we have that, there is some level of customization that is possible for the actuators. One is, do you want to change the path of it, and let us say you want to change it from the default path. You can do management dot endpoints dot web dot base path base dash path equal to /manage. So, now all the endpoints will be available as /manage / something else. Then maybe we want to change the port number of the management server. Now, I have read both opinions. Some people say it's a good idea, some people say it's a bad idea. Nevertheless, just to see how to do it, I am going to show it here. It's up to you whether you want to change it or not. So, we have management server port MANAG. Oh, there is an E missing here, management server port. And then the third is which endpoint do you want to include. So, right now we want to include all of them. So, you can say management dot endpoint dot web dot exposure dot include equal to star. So, now this will make sure all the management endpoints are available. So, now with these two we have the actuators defined. Now, we can run the application and see what do we get. So, now mind it, these applications are beyond the authentication wall. If you want to remove them from authentication wall, you can go ahead and go to the server security configuration and change it, but right now we will just take a auth token and use that to authenticate. So, we run our postman and with the postman, let us first do a authenticate. So, we send this request and this is our auth token. Now, first of our endpoint related to actuators is the info endpoint. So, http:// localhost, because we changed the port to 9091, we have to give that, and we added a prefix of /manage /info, and we add a header for authentication. This is query params, we want to add a header, and we provide the value. Oh, this has got messed up. Now, let us run it. Now, if you see right now there is no info coming in it, but the endpoint is working because we got 200 response. We'll see how to populate that info in a moment. There is another endpoint called health. Now this is an endpoint that you can use to give it to, for example, your ELB on AWS, which will ping it, and if this endpoint is up, you would know whether the server is up. Now let's just check whether if we give a admin, will it give us something else? So let's say, what is the admin? Let's find the admin password. I seems to have, I think let's try with it. No, let's find it. I don't think I know. So let's see. This is user 2. This is also user 2. This is admin, and the password that we gave was this. So with this, now let's go there. Let's authenticate so that we can get a admin auth token. And we have to give same thing in the header as well. We send it, and this is the auth token that we get. And now let's run the health again with this. So that's, we get the same thing. Now ideally it is also supposed to give us health status of, for example, MySQL and things like that. We have to check it out why we are not getting that. We'll see that in a moment. There are a bunch of other actuators which give you more detailed information. For example, there is one actuator that gives you metrics. So you could look to say health manage metrics, and it's, I think I don't have the right name. It's actually right, but for some reason it is not enabled. So we have to check. So let's go to management dot endpoints dot enabled by default equal to true. Let's set this. It is still giving. Should be endpoints. So, by default it only enables health and info endpoints. If you want to enable all of them, you have to be careful about the naming of this particular property, which is you say management endpoints enabled by default equal to true, and management.endpoint.web.exposure.include equal to star. This will enable all the endpoints that are available. So, now we can see metrics. If you see, it has bunch of metrics related to whatever is available, and suppose we do this. This basically gives you the value of that particular metric. So, here number of processes available to JVM is 16. So, this is a very useful one. Similarly, there are some other ones which are very nice. If you are really finding some bizarre behavior, you can do this, you can use this endpoint called HTTP trace, and this will basically trace HTTP requests. Okay, this one is not available on web, it is only available using JMX, so we can't use it. But on web you actually have, actually it is available, HTTP trace. Let us check for ENV. This will tell you all the environment variables that are available in your applications. So, these are very good endpoints for debugging purposes. Similarly, there is an endpoint called thread dump that you can use the live thread dump, or if you are running server. So, see, it will show you all the threads and their wherever they are right now, whatever they are doing. So, this is kind of useful. Similarly, there is an endpoint called mappings. This will tell you all the mappings of the endpoints. Yeah, see, it will tell you which is mapped to which path and things like that. Info we already saw. So, right now it is not giving you much. Similarly, you have caches as another endpoint, which will tell you what caches are integrated. Right now we do not have any. Similarly, there is an endpoint called audit events, which will tell you all the audit events. Right now it doesn't exist for us. Similarly, there is an endpoint called beans that will tell you all the beans that exist in our server. So, if you see, it has all the JPA properties and system beans as well as beans that we have defined. So, these endpoints are very useful for if something is going wrong. Sometimes application works, but in production it shows a different behavior. So, this will help you get the behavior as it exists in production. So, that was about actuators. Now, apart from that, there is another thing that is very useful is we saw the info endpoint, and there was very little of use being displayed there, and that is sometimes. So, for example, so if you see the info endpoint gets its information from bunch of properties that you can define in your application.properties. So, the first one is info.app.name, and we can give it a name. This is our app for YouTube channel. So, this is one. Then you can give description. and the third one is version. So you can give, for example, a version as 1.0. So these are the things that now our info endpoint will show. So let's run it again. And let's run info. So now if you see, we are seeing all these three things that we had defined. Now this is not of a great use, because it will give you some information, but not too much information that is useful. Most of the time we want to know a little bit more about the application as it is running, and to do that there is a trick that I am going to show you, so that you start getting a little bit more information out of your application. Let's just run. I have just removed the quotes because our output was coming little garbled. So if we do this, yeah, so this is the right output. Now most of the time what I have found useful to be part of our info is information related to Git, because you want to, if you have multiple, let's say you have a testing setup, you have a pre-production, you have a staging setup, you might have multiple servers across region in the globe, and sometimes they may not be in sync in terms of version or other information related to Git. So what we want is the Git related information to be present in our application, and the way you do it is there is a plugin which is called Git commit ID plugin. So let's go to our pom.xml to add the dependency. So we go to pom.xml and let's go towards the end, and let's say git dash commit ID plugin. So we got this. Let's just refresh our Maven so that it detects it. Okay, so this came in. Now what we need to do is we can create a Git properties file in the resource directory. So let's say new file git.properties, add to it, and within this file I am just going to copy this because there is a lot of text to be typed. There are a bunch of properties that we can add. So let me just paste them here and then we describe each of them. So now if you see, we have a git tags property. This will tell you all the tags that were applied to the software that was deployed in production, the branch, whether it was dirty or not. This will tell you whether the code is still not checked in, the remote URL, the commit ID, abbreviated commit ID, the describe, and a bunch of things that you will see here as part of this. Now if you build this server, let's say we rebuild the whole thing and then we run it again. Now we go to our postman again and we do info. Now if you see, you get lot more information. Now the only thing is it's not replacing these values, which, let me see, why is it not replacing the value? Okay, so one of the things that you have to keep in mind that this thing only happens by Maven plugin. So because we are building it using IntelliJ, it's not doing the whole job. So let's go to this directory and build it manually using Maven, and we say, so let's first stop the previous application. So let's go ahead and say run and say stop. Now we go to our terminal, say mvn clean package -d skip test. So we build this thing using Maven. Okay, it doesn't like because there is no compiler present. This is the first time I'm building using this, so I have to define certain compiler properties in my Maven. So let me just do that. So let's go back to our IntelliJ again and let's open POM. So basically we are going to add these configurations related to Java compiler. Oh, this is not going to go here. We need another plugin related to compiler and we add it here. And now let's run it. So the Java that I am right now running is actually pointing to a JRE, so I have to find the right, so I'll just set it to the right Java so that it will work. So basically to find out which JVM you are running, first you can do these commands work only on Mac OS, so on other computers you have to do your own thing. So it has to be capital V. So right now we have these 3 Java things that are available, and so what we do is export Java home equal to /library /Java virtual machines, then JDK content home. So now it is working, and now we can run it through command line. Java target tutorial 001 snapshot.jar Java -jar Now this is our application up and running using command line. So now we go to our Postman and again try the same thing. So it is still not replacing it. Oh, so commit ID has to be part of plugins, not the dependency. I think that's a mistake that I have done. So we take this dependency and we move it into the plugin section. And we can remove this dependency tag, indent the code. Let's build it again. Now we run it again. We can just check the Git file whether it has expanded or not. So if we look at the Git property, that is, see, now everything has been expanded. So now we can run it. And we go and do manage info again. So now if you see, it has the time and the ID that is part of it. So there is a default Git info contributor that only provides these three properties into the info. If you want additional properties to be provided, you can actually define your role in info contributor, and that way you can basically provide additional information, or you can write your own endpoint. In any case, within the code, this information is available. So, and the most important piece of it is the commit ID, which you can use to find out which version of software you are running. So I think that was about it. These two things are trivial things, but they become very useful once you have a serious application up and running in your cloud, and I think it's good to have them if you are building a serious application. So that's it about this video. If you liked it, please subscribe, share, hit the bell icon, and look out for additional videos that we will be posting. Thank you, goodbye, and peace.